Why will Nigerian lawmakers need immunity? And immunity from exactly what? Come to think of it, why will any public officer need immunity from prosecution or having to account for personal and public conduct? We're going to dwell on this matter for some time by speaking with Senator Ayo Arise, a former member of the Nigerian Senate who represented Ekiti North Senatorial District from 2007 through 2011. During his time in the Senate, he was at different times chairman of Senate committees, including the Committee on Privatization. Senator Arise, welcome to the Morning Show.
Good morning, Senator.
Good morning.
Thank you very much. Good morning.
Yes, Senator, it's good to have you on the Morning Show.
I couldn't see the other lady, yes.
I know that each time you ran for office,
thank you very much.
Your campaign slogan was Arise. And here we have Arise on Arise News. But let's talk about this plan by members of the National Assembly to amend the Constitution, Section 308 thereof, which deals with immunity. That section, as it is, only grants immunity tied to the offices of the president, the vice president, the governors, and the deputy governors. Since 2016, members of the National Assembly have been pushing to have that Section 308 amended to include lawmakers, particularly the principal officers of the National Assembly. Do you think that this is a wise proposal, considering the fact that only in 2018, the president assented to the bill on powers and privileges for legislative houses?
Well, thank you very much. I think it's not a good step. There has been attempts to extend immunity to members of the National Assembly via amendment of Section 308, as you rightly pointed out. But we copied the American system of government. And there is no immunity granted to members of the Congress in the United States. The extent of the immunity granted in their Constitution that we borrowed and copied is the fact that while you are inside the National Assembly, you enjoy immunity. Well, if you're traveling from your house or your office to the National Assembly for national assignment, you have immunity. If you're within the chambers, you do have immunity. And you cannot be prosecuted for anything that you say or do on the floor of the National Assembly, be it the House of Rep or the Senate. And of course, the wisdom of those who put together the Constitution is the fact that you cannot make laws that exempt you as a lawmaker from obeying such law. You cannot make a law for the people of the country and you exempt yourself that, oh, okay, I enjoy immunity from this particular law that I have made. That is the wisdom behind it. You cannot enjoy immunity as a member of the National Assembly beyond what the Constitution stipulated. There has been moves to actually remove immunity for the governors and the deputy governors, because in the United States, it's only the president and the vice president that enjoys immunity. And we have looked at it and have studied a little bit about it. So the premise that this is the norm in other advanced democracies, as postulated by the gentleman that had this bill in the House of Rep, is actually not on a solid foundation. So I would imagine that right now we're having problems even prosecuting some people. Immediately they become governors or deputy governors, they're immune for 4 years. That means all crimes forgiven. And I don't think we should be encouraging that in any way or manner possible. So if we now have immunity in the National Assembly, you can imagine what will happen. Everybody that has gotten all manner of wealth will just buy over the seats. They will be there. They will be the one making the laws, and because they enjoy immunity, you can't touch them. I believe for the interests of this country, for the 4 years that people charged with the responsibility of making laws in this country, we should follow what our forefathers, those who wrote the Constitution of Nigeria and copied the one of the United States, we should actually copy everything that is good about that Constitution and practice it.
Thank you, Senator. I mean, it would be an absolute end to any notion of democracy if for any reason we did have a bill like that signed into law. And I like the fact that you said it's very ironic to even assume that lawmakers can be exempt from the laws that they put forward. I completely agree with that point, and I concur. And this is nothing short of absurd, to be honest. However, how far do you really see this bill going, Senator? I mean, of course, it's gone through its first hearing, but how far do you really see it going?
Well, I believe many of the senators might end up opposing it for the fact that that Senate is it's a seat of equals. It's only three people per Senate. Now, when you get to become a senator, you now vote. It's not a national vote. The senators appoint amongst themselves who will be in leadership. And of course, it's not based on any particular criteria. There are so many of the criteria that you can actually sit down and vote. So some people might benefit and be a part of leadership based on geographical section where they come from. Some might come in because they have a sufficient wherewithal, to influence other senators as they come in, particularly the new ones, and then they could find themselves in the office of, or they could become leaders of the Senate. And if you now say it's just the leaders alone that are going to give immunity, then the rest of those who have who struggled on the same premise and were elected, to become senators, if you are saying that you want to give all the senators immunity, I can imagine that, yes, there might be some sentiments on that. And when you do that, the House of Assemblies, which actually, of course, everybody in the House of Rep will be looking for the same thing. The House of Assemblies in the states will also be looking for the same thing. So we should look at it that what we are postulating is for the greater interest of this country, not for the individual. And I think it's an ill-advised move. It's always been there, people suggesting it. But even if they were saying, okay, maybe the president or the Senate or the speaker, we can look at the personality and say, okay, these people, they are decent people, but are we going to be able to guarantee that the person coming tomorrow will have the same kind of character or ability or competence? So for us, I think it's something that should be thrown out. It's not in the best interest of this country for now.
But Senator, let's look at the argument being put forward by those who are proposing this amendment of Section 308. They're saying that if principal officers have to go to a court to attend to one form of litigation or the other, in which, they are in the dock, that the work of the National Assembly will be adversely affected. And a good example that is cited is the case of former Senate President Dr. Bukola Saraki, who had to be taking time out to go to the Code of Conduct Tribunal, even while he was serving as Senate President. There was also the case involving Senator Ike Ikuremadu. So they argue that this amounts to distraction. These principal officers should be granted immunity, of course, for the period that they hold, the positions they hold in the National Assembly. And this is because, of course, the whole principle of immunity is office specific.
Well, I believe making laws, of course, you have hierarchy and you have different officers. If the Senate President is being asked to come to court, the Deputy Senate President is there to actually sit and direct the affairs of the Senate. Now, by the same hierarchy, if the two of them happen to be in court together, the Senate leader is there to preside. So it's not the Senate. We have about 109 senators. If somebody is being asked to come to court for offenses committed or alleged to be committed, that should not stop the business of the National Assembly. And it is important that those that will be holding such responsibility, they follow the rules, you know, or the laws of the Federal Republic. I believe what happened to the former Senate president was the issue of asset declaration, you know. And I think if he had done that correctly, nobody would be asking him to come to court. And we've had several Senate presidents before the last one, and I cannot imagine anyone that was being dragged to the court, so much so that it would distract his ability to function in the Senate. Now, when you look at it, you say you want to, because of that, so that you don't want a Senate president or the deputy to go to court to go and answer questions on whatever mistakes he made in the past. I don't think that is what the Constitution is all about, and that's not what democracy is about. This Constitution is protecting the poorest of the poorest and the richest of the richest. It's not about the fact I'm in a particular position, so I must give myself immunity and take liberty for license and start doing anything that I want to do. I don't think it's proper. For me, I believe even the governors, the fact that they have that immunity for 4 years, people are questioning the rationale behind it. But we can justify that. The fact, okay, a governor has the ability to sign a death warrant for somebody. He has the ability to do so many things. He can, which are part of his regular assignment as governor. So you might want to protect the governor and the deputy governor. But it's not sacrosanct. It's something that you even look at it, what kind of offenses would the governor commit?
Senator Arise, we need to take...
you can charge him to court. Yeah, yes.
Senator, sorry to interrupt you. We need to take a short commercial break. When we return, the conversation will continue. Please stay with us.
Welcome back to the morning show here on Arise News. We're still joined by Senator Ayo Arise in our Abuja studios, a former member of the Nigeria Senate who represented Ekiti North Senatorial District from 2007 to 2011. Thank you for staying on the program with us, Senator. Before we went on a break, you were concluding your thoughts on a particular statement, and I'd also like you to add into that and answer a question for me for the sake of our audience. Who are these principal officers of the National Assembly, or of the National Assembly that we are speaking of?
Well, the principal officers include the Senate President, the Deputy Senate President, the leader of the Senate, the deputy leader, the chief whip, the deputy chief whip, then you have the same set in the opposition. You have the leader, that's the minority leader, you have the deputy minority leader, you have the minority whip, the deputy minority whip, and down like that. So it's they are the ones charged with the affairs of running the Senate for the period of the election into to that leadership position. So those are the members. Those are the members that constitute the Senate leadership.
The chairmen of committees are not considered principal officers of the National Assembly, or are they?
No, they are not. They are not. They are not considered members of the leadership. I mean, a Senate, if you are, as a matter of fact, every member of the Senate is either a committee chairman or a deputy committee chairman. So obviously that will now include everybody. And if that is what they advocate, then it's another discussion entirely. The chances for success based on individual interest might might allow such to scale through. But when it's just a question of the leadership, then you have introduced a different kind of game to the Senate. People will now want to be, looking for these positions at all costs. Well, we see how things go in Nigeria when people are seeking to become governors because of the power that is inherent there. Now, when you look at it, that okay, you cannot be prosecuted for any crime. You have another 4 years to enjoy. Either it's a loot that you have been, being prosecuted or being charged for looting the treasury or wherever you are coming from, or whether you are in any public office and you've been able to steal enough money to say, okay, I can buy my way and I now go and enjoy immunity there. No, we've seen the way this thing has been. We've seen even the abuses in those who tend to become governors. They are already, all cases they have, it's already shut down for the next 4 years. So it's not encouraging for those who are hardworking, who are decent people in society. So for us, people suggesting it might be looking at it from a purely, maybe a purely, you say, innocent perspective. But when you look at the implications deep down, you know it's not a thing that this country requires at this time because people will tend to abuse it. And those who are there, who can even come in as new senators or senators who have never been governors, you will now discover that before you have another 4 or 5 sessions, the Senate will now be populated by ex-governors. And it will become so difficult for somebody who has never been a governor or deputy to be in that Senate, unless you have some people who have a lot of money and they feel like they want to try politics. Then those ones will probably be able to match in terms of the resources that a governor has. A governor doesn't even have to steal a president in Nigeria. The security vote is enough for them to amass pretenders' wealth. So the fear for the Senate is that, okay, you want to create a situation when these senators come in, then you are talking about leadership. It is those who have the resources, because take it or leave it, it's not a cheap thing. You campaign, you influence your members, you do all manner of stuff to even get into that position. But the way it's done, you might say it's just the Senate president and the deputy or the selection committee that are responsible for appointing the other members of the leadership. But when you look at it critically, why do we need this? What purpose is it going to serve? You are serving the people, you are serving the country, you are serving your constituency. So why do you need immunity? Immunity for what? I mean, those are the questions raging in the minds of people, Nigerians. Those of us who are no longer there, we relate to everyday Nigerians, so we know what is going on. And we hear the kind of comments outside. So I don't think it's a popular move to try and grant immunity to a section of the Senate.
Well, Senator Arise, there was something opinion. You alluded to. Yeah. You said many Nigerians are even questioning Section 308 of the Constitution, which grants immunity to the president, the vice president, governors, and their deputies. And examples have been cited that in Guatemala, the immunity clause was abolished. And in South Korea, they don't have that immunity for their presidents. And in some other countries of the world, that, okay, why don't we also in Nigeria just remove Section 308 from the Constitution, instead of anyone at all, whether president or vice president or members of House of Reps looking for immunity from prosecution while they are in office?
Well, my position is that we saw the American system of government and we copied their constitution, almost verbatim. And immunity is granted to the president and the vice president of the United States. And their system works. The system works. So, and they've practiced this for almost, close to 300 years now. And it's still the best system of government anywhere in the world, if it is well practiced. So they saw a rationale for granting immunity to the president and the vice president. The issue of the governor, the governors under the U.S. Constitution are not granted any immunity. There was a particular case in Illinois in 1921 where a governor, after the court has said, okay, you are guilty, the lawyer came back and said, oh, no, he enjoys immunity. The court said, no, this guy needs to be arrested here because he does not enjoy any immunity at all. So no governor enjoys immunity in the U.S., no deputy governor. And it not only allows people to watch their back. Now, what am I doing? Is this something that I can defend in the public? Is this something that if somebody now says, oh, this governor has stolen this much, he has mismanaged this much, you can go to court and try him? That would not necessarily be the case, but it is a check and balance on the way people behave. So for me, I do not think removing immunity for the president and the vice president is the best way, because we've seen the way it's worked for that democracy in the world. The examples you cited, yes, there might be some serious excesses, but when you look at it, if people come out and we have to deal with just the president or his vice after 4 years or after 8 years, then those people who are looking for the wrongs that public officials commit while in office, they only have to focus on 2 people, not on 38 people. That is including, no, what am I even talking about? You have about 70 for the Senate. 72. I mean, for the states, you have about 72, yes. Then additional 2 from the federal, which is the president and the vice. So for me, I look at it, we have copied a system that has worked, that has endured over a period. Let us copy it correctly. I have said, while I was in the Senate, that we need to have a staggered election for the Senate so that everybody does not face the threat of being removed at one election. The way it's done in the U.S., it is staggered. Every 2 years, you go for an election, and you have a third of the Senate due for election every 2 years. And the whole thing is about 6 years. I've advocated this, and I said, look, if we are copying something, these people had the reason for doing this.
Well,
it is
thank
possible.
You very much,
That's
Senator
one person,
Arise.
very
thank
popular.
You, Senator.
Yeah.
On that note, we'll have to bring this to a close. We're very grateful indeed.